Hi there, Joel from Jonesy's Auto Club, and today we're working on our favorite Toyota Land Cruiser, and specifically this video is going to show you how to replace your front brakes with some really awesome high performance drilled and slotted rotors that we got from 360 Performance Rotors. They sent this stuff over to us, and we're happy to plug their rotors for them because they are the best possible brake upgrade you can do for these really big, heavy trucks. They're available on our website, so any of the stuff you see you can go to jonesysoffroad.com and buy so that you can do this stuff in your garage with the help of my video. I'm going to first go over some of the basic tools that you're going to need. If you work on Toyotas frequently, then you know that Toyota bolts come in a very standard size. You have a 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 17 millimeter, and 19 millimeter. Those are pretty much the sockets that you're going to need to do this. I use wobblies with impact guns. All this stuff you can do by hand. I want to get things done and I want to get them done fast, so I use power tools. In addition, you're going to need some miscellaneous punches, some side cutters, a couple of screwdrivers, specialty tools. You're going to need an axle nut socket. You can buy these pretty much any auto parts store has those, or you might even be able to rent them. You'll need some snap ring pliers, regular ratchets, some regular channel locks, hammer. So if you follow me over to the workbench, I'll go through some of the components that you're going to want to get before you decide to tackle this project. Over here at the workbench, starting with the brake rotor. If you're going to do your brakes and or your steering knuckle rebuild, you definitely want to replace your brakes. These came from 360 Performance Rotors. They are drilled, slotted. The price is amazing for what you're getting. They are completely and totally machined CNC in the United States and plated in the United States. So if anybody tells you, oh well, those are junk because they're import rotors, well, here's the real story on rotors. Almost all of the rotor blanks come from overseas, Taiwan, China, wherever. The trick is you need to have them machined by a facility in the United States. 360 Performance Rotors sources them from a direct machine shop here on stateside to our specifications. So you can tell this thing is a nice high quality rotor. It's got a non-directional finish. It's got drilled, slotted, chamfered holes, and it has been zinc plated to prevent corrosion. Okay, moving on. In the supplied kit, we sourced Power Stop brake pads. I personally think that brake pads are extremely subjective, depending on your driving style, what you're used to. These are a ceramic brake pad. Go to Power Stop's website. They claim to have very little dust, so they try to keep your wheels clean, and on the back they kind of go through the advantages of their product. We have found that for the price, these are the best pads that you can buy. First step, get the tire off. I'm going to use an impact gun with a 13/16 socket. Okay, so I got the tire off, and what you're going to want to do, we're on the driver's side, you're going to want to turn the wheel and the rotor all the way to the passenger side. That just makes it a little bit easier to get to the two bolts that hold the brake caliper on. So I'm going to use a screwdriver and dig out a lot of this crap. This thing has definitely been four-wheeled, and we have leaves and dirt and debris packed in there from mud. So I'm going to start digging that stuff out, and then we're going to get the brake caliper off. Okay. We'll start dissecting the brakes. The first step here is going to be to remove, take the brake pads out and compress the pistons on the caliper, and then we'll take the caliper off and we'll hang it up here off of the spring. So now hopefully you can zoom in and you'll be able to see there's a little clip that holds the pins in. It's a kind of a safety pin clip. that holds the two pins that then hold the brake shoes into the caliper. So I used to use a screwdriver to pop those pins out, and you want to make note how this brake tensioner anti-rattle spring goes in. On my cart here, I keep my tools on the top shelf and my parts on the bottom shelf. So tools go on the top, extra parts go on the bottom shelf. It's a nice way to just keep everything separate. Inevitably, I'm going to be fumbling around trying to find tools no matter what, but that does help to kind of minimize. Okay, now to compress the actual brake caliper pistons, I start out with a pair of channel locks, and you just want to do this as slowly as you can, and essentially you're just squeezing the pads and squeezing the pistons back. Now once you get one side done, I take a screwdriver, cram a screwdriver in there, so that when you compress this set of pistons, it doesn't then just cause this set you just compressed to come back out. So if this shouldn't take a huge amount of force. I mean, you can tell I'm using pretty small channel locks. If this takes a whole lot of force, then you have some problems with your calipers. So squeeze those back, and I'm just going to do the final squeeze with a set of screwdrivers. If you're going to reuse your rotors, you want to be gentle with your rotors, not pressing on them too much. Okay, now once you've gotten those pistons scooted back, you can then go ahead and pull your pads out. Now, original equipment pads are semi-metallic. They get a bad rap because you have little chunks of metallic inside the brake pads, and they can a lot of times make a lot of noise. Lots of squeaking and a grinding sound. The same thing can be said for ceramic pads. Ceramic pads kind of get a bad rap also because they can sometimes make a lot of noise as well. And like I said, pads are something that are extremely subjective, and you're definitely going to want to do your own research when it comes to pads. Now, these things, it looks like they have quite a bit of material left, but the rule of thumb is that when the friction material, which is this piece right here, is less than the thickness of the backing plate, which is this piece right here, it is time to replace your pads. On top of that, if you see, this is the squealer. The squealer is right at the same surface as your brake pad. So these pads are totally worn out. They are ready to be replaced. Okay? The caliper is ready to be removed. And it is held on there, like I said previously, with a couple of 17mm bolts. And sometimes these bolts are extremely tight. Hopefully I can use my little 3/8 impact gun to blast them off there with my wobbly, but we'll see. Okay, now you never want to let your caliper just dangle. And so what I do is I get a couple of tie wraps and I hang it.
Is it air on?
From the spring, like so. Okay, got that guy tie wrapped up out of the way. There's no real pressure on the line. And then you can actually go in here and see the condition of your pistons. Okay, now it's time to remove these. They're 12mm nuts. And what you want to do is you want to get them loose and then start the nut back on. And as you can see right here, we actually are missing one. Not uncommon for these to get over tight. Okay, now that I've got all of the nuts loosened, there is a little tapered spacer inside there that you have to break loose. And it's going to seem crude, but this is how you do it. You take a hammer and you hit right on top of the axle flange. And it pops that. Hopefully you can see that. It pops that little taper loose. Tapered spacers. Okay, now you need to expose the end of the axle because there's a little there's a snap ring underneath here. So and remove the snap ring. And now what you'll see is we have our lock nut. Okay, what you need to find is the lock nut retaining washer, and it will have a couple of ears that are bent over. Hopefully you can zoom way in and see that little tab right there. And I'm just going to take a hammer and a screwdriver and bend that out of the way. Now comes your big axle nut socket. Should loosen up pretty easily. This outer one basically just locks everything into place so that the inner one doesn't back off or tighten and cause your bearings, your wheel bearings, to preload. Now I'm pulling this off and you'll notice that this tab right here is bent in. That tab that's bent in locks in the inner axle nut that should only be hand tight. I just went and grabbed a dead blow hammer. I can bang on it a little bit to get it to pop free. There it goes. And here is bearing washer for your front wheel bearings. Okay, and there is also your wheel bearing seal. To get the wheel bearing seal out, most of the time you can just use a pry bar that goes right underneath the seal and pop it out like that. And then that allows you to get your inner front wheel bearing out. Okay, now we're going to continue to dissect this rotor right up here on the bench. The hub and the rotor are two separate pieces, and the hub actually bolts to the rotor. So take a 17mm socket. Okay, now when you're messing around with the rotor, you want to be very cautious of these studs. You don't want to be banging those studs on everything when you're working on it. And you need to get this hub separated from this rotor. And I have found probably the best way to do that without using a press or anything like that is just to bang on the hub and slowly start to work it around, and it'll eventually come off. If you live in the rust belt, these things can be rusted on here really, really tight. So you can kind of see just that couple little bangs has already gotten me some separation.